we are pleased to note the close cooperation and coordination between the two respective organizations addressing. This is really reassuring, and I hope that we will see more in future. Our next speaker is Mr. Jeff Grove. He's Vice President of Global Policy and Industry Affairs at the ASTM International. Mr. Grove holds a bachelor degree of science and a master in the International Commercial Policy from George Mason University in Virginia. We are, I'm glad to invite you to the podium.
I'm going to adjust this microphone a bit. Well, thank you, Dr. Masry, for the introduction. And I certainly want to thank His Excellency Nabil Mollah for his role in inviting ASTM International to take part in this important discussion today at this important forum. So I'm from ASTM International. We're the largest standards development organization that's domiciled in the United States. We have members from over 120 different countries. We're not a government agency, but we work under a public-private partnership. Our members tend to come from Fortune 500 companies, small, medium-sized enterprises, certainly government ministries, government agencies, research institutes, and other stakeholders that need to have a voice in shaping standards to reflect their needs. So the topic of today's discussion is very interesting to me and to ASTM, strengthening innovation and industrial competitiveness through standardization. And for ASTM, I think we've got about 115 years now of experience working with industry to help them meet their needs. And there's maybe 4 or 5 things that we would recommend as some of the key success criteria in a goal like this. That includes engagement and collaboration, quality, relevance, and acceptance. So on the engagement side, ASTM is very, very fortunate to have excellent relationships in Saudi Arabia, both with leading companies and with important institutions like SASO. Recognizing that in 2007, His Excellency Nabil Mollah and my boss, Jim Thomas, the president of ASTM International, formally agreed to enhance technical cooperation and collaboration through entering into a Memorandum of Understanding, an MOU. And through this kind of cooperation, each year ASTM provides SASO with all 12,000 ASTM standards, test methods, guides, important technical information for the official purposes and official uses that SASO needs those to service their industry and their citizens. But from ASTM's standpoint, from an engagement and collaboration standpoint, probably what's equally as important or more so important is the fact that this MOU allows and encourages technical experts from Saudi Arabian industry to engage directly in ASTM technical committees where they have an equal voice. They pay no fee, they have full participation in the activity, and the vote of a Saudi member is equal to the vote of an American or a European member. So it's a very open, transparent, and balanced process that ultimately results in high quality, market relevant, globally accepted and recognized standards. So in Saudi Arabia, we're very fortunate that several key sectors, particularly the petroleum and construction industry, utilizes an awful lot of ASTM standards. And now, more recently, we've begun to work with some of the academia. Some of the companies, of course, that you'd recognize that are members of ASTM from Saudi include Saudi Aramco, SABIC, Saudi Electric, Saudi Ready Mix, a variety of other fuels and construction materials companies. On the academic side, we have new relationships with CAST and KAUST, which are leading to new opportunities and helping to drive student members into the ASTM process. In total, as His Excellency Nabil Mollah's slide indicated, in total, about 1,500 ASTM standards have been adopted referenced or serve as the basis of the national standards in Saudi Arabia. And additionally, several dozen, perhaps several hundred other standards are referenced in the building codes. And just as an example of some of the technical issues that you can resolve when you engage, one of the issues I understand that the National Building Committee had when looking at the code adoption process was the fact that many of the underlying standards from groups like ASTM International were primarily metric-based. So that was an important issue that came back to our technical committees, and we engaged the right set of stakeholders. And today we have over 5,000 rationalized SI statements associated with our standards. So essentially every standard that needs to have a hard metric conversion now has one or is under development to have one. So those are the kind of things we can accomplish when we have good engagement, good cooperation to meet needs. So just to come back to just a few of the points that I wanted to address, in our experience, it's very clear that using standards of the best quality and of the best technical relevance is what leads to commercial and technical success. And as standards developers, or particularly at ASTM, but I can mention some of our peer groups that are US domiciled, like ASME, NFPA, Underwriters Laboratories, and others, we look to ensure that our standards development process is open to all stakeholders, that stakeholders have an equal voice in the process, and that we try to keep the science and the technology in where technical rationales went out, and we try to keep the politics and the market advantages out of the standards development process. So another important part of the types of standards that can really drive commercial and technical success is relevance. And for us, that means making sure that standards reflect new technology, state-of-the-art industry practice, and other emerging dynamics in the global marketplace. And really, we couldn't do that without having the voice and the active engagement from countries like SABEC and certainly, countries like Saudi Arabia and other countries around the world that participate in the process. In today's complicated business environment, really industries, we've found the industries that we service that they work with their governments, and they've found that they really need multiple sources of international standards to best match their technical needs. And fortunately for both of our nations, of the United States and Saudi Arabia, SASO and the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, as part of the industrial strategy, really recognize the significance of technical quality and relevance. And they're open to choosing from a broader portfolio of international standards to best meet Saudi industry needs. So in many cases, that means using ASTM standards. In other cases, it means using ISO or European norms. But in the end, there's a technical decision that's made on what standard is best to use for what particular application. And that's the type of policy that best drives competitiveness issues and will serve us well as we face some of the future challenges of the advanced technologies of tomorrow. So just in conclusion, we think that through technical engagement and cooperation in standards development and the technology transfer that takes place through these types of engagement, we can foster innovation, drive business growth, and advance the competitiveness of both Saudi and American industry. So those are my opening remarks. I look forward to some questions, or if there's a chance to meet with you this evening, I look forward very much to engaging in dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grove, and for the rest of the panels. Now the floor will be open for discussions and questions. Already I see some of the cards have been. Thank you. To His Excellency, Mr. Mullah, what does SASCO currently do to endorse quality control amongst the healthcare, good, and the pharmaceutical industries? Anything similar to the FDA?
Thank you. Just I'd like to announce maybe that if somebody missed the news that Saudi Food and Drug Administration been established in almost now 7 or 8 years ago, But so I started working very hard the last 8 years for medical devices and drugs, etc. Is their role 100%. SASU was working to developing food standards and also medical devices, cosmetics, etc. Only 4 months ago, been moved from SASU responsibility to Saudi FDA. So they are in charge of this. But for quality in general, as I said, we are working to developing national strategy for quality for Saudi Arabia. Of course, we have a lot of partnership with different organizations, public and private. Of course, Saudi FDA will be one of the main partners to developing quality in all different, and of course, in addition to Ministry of Health, for health, medical devices, etc. Thank you.
Thank you. This question is, I think, for Ms. Sanders. What is NIST doing to assist small companies who don't afford to pay for product certifications?
Well, we have an active program to assist small businesses generally to improve their manufacturing programs. It's called the Manufacturing Extension Program, and it's a partnership with our state and local economic development administrations across the United States. We have over 70 centers in the various states that work hand in hand directly in a client relationship with individual companies to help them improve the quality of their production, improve the efficiency, the sustainability of production, and also in specific cases to enhance their access to export markets. That program's undertaken in collaboration with the International Trade Administration. We do not, and there is not a government agency or a government effort to reduce the cost of product certification by directly subsidizing or sharing that cost with the private sector. I mean, what NIST does in working with federal agencies, and what federal agencies are bound to do under the Administrative Procedures Act, is to evaluate the cost and the benefits of individual regulations, and certainly the cost of demonstrating compliance with the regulations is taken into account by the agency when they make that determination.
I hope that addresses the questioner's concern about small companies. The next query is, I think, again to Dr. Al-Mullah. My company exports medical devices that are FDA approved. Do we need SASU approval to sell to Saudi Arabia? Then one, if yes, what is the process? And two, what about supplemental products in nutraceuticals, vitamins, etc.?
In brief, this goes to Saudi FDA. Thank you.
Good. That's very brief. Again, to Engineer Al-Mullah, are there any plans to promote green, sustainable products, practices in Saudi Arabia, and set standards for this? And if yes, why?
Yes, we have in our plan. As a matter of fact, we started to work with a company approaching us to this matter. Now we are developing, try to establish a committee, national committee for this matter. But I think we are in the first steps. So that means we need to elaborate in this matter with the concerned parties from private and public sector. I'm sure that we need to have a lot of knowledge and information from other countries that have this experience. So the answer is yes, and we'll start in 2012 working with this committee.
If I could, Dr. Masry.
Please.
So to date, most of ASTM's experience and relationships in Saudi Arabia are in the petroleum and construction industries, but we're very excited about the opportunity to transition and work more on sustainability, green buildings, and alternative energies. It's an area of a lot of exciting new standardization activities with a lot of great international participation and application. So that will be an excellent opportunity for us to work more closely together. Thank you.
Very good. again for Dr. Al-Mullah. Please explain the MRP in relation to ICAC/IAF a bit more. ILAC, ILAC.
Yes. As I mentioned that for the TBT agreement within the WTO, it has three major pillars, which is technical regulations, then standards, and finally is the conformity assessment procedures. So conformity assessment procedures, it includes a lot of things, as I said, certification, sampling, testing, just name it, or a combination of these. But of course, it encourages all different countries to have MRP, mutual recognition program or agreements, to facilitate the trade. So that means instead of testing all imported products within the country of the imported countries, so we could recognize very well-known certified or accredited, I could say, certifying bodies in different countries or laboratories. They could certify the consignment exported to Saudi Arabia according to the Saudi standard or technical regulations. And this certificate could, once been issued by this MRP, I mean with SASU, could be accepted on, in the custom and Ministry of Commerce and Industry. And no further, I said, no further testing, except of course for random testing to be verified this COC. So it's very important, and now we've signed with 14 countries and with 10 major companies such as SGS, Bureau Veritas, etc. And hopefully the next 2 months with UL, inshallah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I open the floor for any further handwritten questions. If there is any comment or statement, anybody is welcome. Okay. If no other question, I have to further put a small query to the panel, to all of the, considering what we made, what the opening remark I made about the case of Saudi Arabia, and particularly that we, and I speak as a consumer, as I find many products of questionable quality in the market. Now, the challenge has been Dr. Mullah's for all the time in order to protect the consumer from the access of such products to the country. However, it's a matter of coordination. What your experience in the United States would shed light to, you talked about the various organizations. Dr. Mullah referred to various organizations that has to really coordinate the act in order to protect the consumers within the borders of any sovereign state. Now, I will begin by asking Dr. Mullah briefly to address this challenge, and then I'd like to have each of the panelists, give that in the coordination process between the various institutional frames that exist within the country.
Okay. As I mentioned, we have 5 pillars to protect the consumer. The first of all is to have a standards. Once you have a standard, I think that means you will have a very strong base to start with. Then we have also testing laboratories. Then we have a metrology center for calibrating all the testing facilities, either industry or the laboratories. Also, fourth, which is the accreditation. You have a national accreditation organization in each country. And then the awarenesses. For all these, once you have all these, you have to work very closely to the other partners. I'll give you just a very clear and very transparent to Saudi Arabia. We draw a roadmap for this, for the imported products. What's the source? How can, first of all, who is in charge in this, government sectors, who is in charge of this from the origin, which we say that SASU could work very closely with this MRP. Then once it comes to the ports, who is in charge of this? So I think Minister of Commerce and Industry and Custom is in charge of this. But of course, we have to be very clear definition who is in charge, who is responsible for that. So we try to avoid any duplication. And of course, in addition to that, of course, we try to cover any gap between the responsibilities of different organizations. Then after that, if it's according to the standard, it goes to the market. So again, who is in charge in the market? Surveillance. Again, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, maybe the municipality, and maybe also the third, which is the private non-government organization, such as Consumer Protection Agency or committee, which we have in Saudi Arabia. So that means we have to, as I said, to put very defined responsibility for each government or private sector responsibility, and to, as I said, to avoid any duplication and to filling the gap, that responsibility very clear. And I'm sure with this awareness, of course, and of course, Minister of, or the, I could say the public, which is the PR, public relation or media, should involve in this matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Sander?
Well, as I mentioned briefly earlier, the regulation in the United States focuses on protection of consumer health, safety, and the environment. And many of the transactions in the market in the United States they don't take place in the regulated space. A huge volume of transactions are in the commercial space, and there is not a particular regulatory agency that has oversight of that particular transaction or a particular attribute. We have a very large market in the United States. It's a very competitive market, and so the industry, the manufacturers of a particular product, both domestically and those that are importing products, are very good at what we call industry self-policing. It's a very competitive market, and so one manufacturer who puts a product on the market that is of high quality and feels that they are unfairly in competition with a product that is not what it appears to be, is defective or is of lesser quality, not meeting what it claims to be, will take legal action in the private sector. There's also quite a bit of activity in industry associations, trade associations that come together to develop programs that assure the quality or the performance characteristics of products. In the United States as well, we have a very strong legal framework. We have a Federal Trade Commission which addresses labeling issues as well as truth in advertising. So you can, a manufacturer or a distributor who engages in advertising which is not accurate, it's not true about their product or their service, can be taken to court and pay civil and even criminal damages depending on how serious the issue is. And the Department of Justice also looks at competition as well at a general level. We have a very strong legal framework in terms of product liability laws as well, which handles issues related to defective products. And then when you get into regulated products that are coming either manufactured domestically, that not meeting the requirements, or imported, there's a very strong collaboration between our customs enforcement through customs at the border, as well as the manufacturers who manufacture those products, as well as several of our regulatory agencies have surveillance and oversight responsibilities as well, and can actually go out into the market and sample products to ensure that they meet regulatory requirements. But it takes an effort from many different quarters. It's not one agency's or one individual's responsibility. What you need are informed consumers. You need information to be widely available. You need to have choice amongst a large market helps. So you have choice amongst products, and then the regulatory infrastructure and the legal infrastructure as well. But I do agree with Dr. Molla that it does all start with standards, whether they are voluntarily applied across the industry in terms of performance or industry best practice, or whether they are mandated by a regulatory agency.
Thank you very much. You've enlightened. Yeah. Mr. Grove, could you?
And Ms. Saunders really covered that question. If I could bolster her comments a bit, she mentioned the role of trade associations and manufacturers, and I would add big box retailers who are very active in the ASTM standardization process and the standards development processes of other standards organizations, Walmart, Sears, Target, IKEA. These companies engage in standards. They demand quality from their suppliers. They're very conscious of the REACH and ROS directives out of the European Union, lead levels and other requirements coming out of both at the federal level in the United States and some deviations amongst some of the states in the United States. So they really demand quality and they demand safety from their suppliers. I think they've found, I heard a talk, they found that at times consumers will forget what brand of product they bought, but they won't forget where they bought it from. So that's helped to drive this attention and this role of big box retailers in the process.
Thank you very much. If there are no further comments, I would just like to address myself to the panelists with gratitude and thanks to His Excellency Dr. Nabil Al-Mullah and Ms. Sanders and Mr. Grove for the very, very smooth presentation and their contributions to this panel. And I'll invite you to really give them a good
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.